Welcome to Doing the Most, the series where we talk about the misadventures of entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Georgie, execution strategist and serial entrepreneur. This series is here to get real about what entrepreneurial life truly looks like. We are driven, persistent, hardworking, ambitious. We are human, and these are our stories. Welcome back to Doing the Most, the misadventures of entrepreneurship. Today, our very special guest is Josh Gershon. He is the founder of Startup Island. A couple years ago, when Josh had this idea, I assisted him in kind of setting a part of the foundation, and then he went on to accelerate and grow and build Startup Island into this amazing program that no one could have imagined back in, what was it, like 2015 or 2014?
2015, yeah.
Yeah, so long. And it's just really crazy how, people start with this one small idea and then it becomes this great thing that's impacted hundreds of students, young professionals and individuals literally all over the world. But, Josh, definitely, can you give us an introduction and tell us about who you are and kind of what your entrepreneurial journey has been so far?
Absolutely, yeah. And thanks for having me on. This is cool because of our backstory.
Yeah.
Comes full circle. But yeah, I guess to make it somewhat of a short story, or I'll try. I think I was always entrepreneurial minded. I can say that looking backwards now. I don't know that I would have been able to tell you that necessarily as a kid or a high school student. But one thing I definitely can say about myself now that I know resoundingly is that I always question things. So if I was told to do something, but it didn't make sense to me, or, internally it didn't feel right, or it wasn't providing me some sort of stimulation or value, I always kind of had a problem with doing that thing. Or I would at least stop and question, well, why do I have to do this thing? Mm-hmm. And that played out in my life through school, through summer jobs I had, through things my parents wanted me to do. That played out everywhere in my early life. And so I think, like a lot of entrepreneurs can say, I did all of the lemonade stands. And I remember when desktop computers were still a thing and the CD burner came out, I used to burn CDs and try to sell them, and all that good stuff to try and have a little quick side hustle.
The hustles.
Of course. But then I think where it really kind of kickstarted, where the entrepreneurial journey became something tangible, was in college, where I had the opportunity to work for a student-founded business. Up until that point, I was kind of a dreamer. I used to come up with all these crazy ideas, and I believed that, I believed that crazy ideas were crazy ideas, and therefore crazy ideas can't be actually turned into reality. But it was during college where my friend and I, and really this was spearheaded by one of my friends, he had this idea for what at the time we thought was this original, online food ordering platform. So now, of course, there's Grubhub and Seamless and Uber Eats and, another million competitors out there. But we were thinking more towards, creating this platform specifically for the small college town of Bloomington, Indiana, where we were going to school at Indiana University. And so a couple weeks into our freshman year, I remember my friend was talking to a couple older students about this idea. We were out at a party or something one night, and he's talking to a couple of guys. I think one was a junior, one was a senior. And he's essentially pitching them this idea for this online platform. And he says, this is what we want to do. We want to, collect all these menus, put everything online, streamline the whole food ordering process, blah, 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 blah. And one of the guys says to us essentially, well, got some good news and bad news for you. Unfortunately, this idea is taken. There's a website here on campus called B-Town Menus that it's really starting to gain some traction, and everybody's starting to use it. And so, you probably wouldn't be best off to start a competitor right now in the game. But the good news is it's my company. I'm the founder. And so And so it's pretty crazy coincidence. And I remember my friend started working for him pretty shortly after. And then a few more of us also started working for him as interns. And, through that experience, that kind of just stuck. And a few of us stayed the course for all 4 years of college. And I personally worked my way from, basically a guerrilla marketing intern to director of marketing. And with that title came a lot of different things. We were planning marketing campaigns, was hiring and firing interns, was, running these small initiatives on campus. We were selling advertisements to restaurants. We were, we really had the opportunity to, do several different things throughout the business. And that experience showed me two major things. For one, it showed me, we as students right now, as young people, we have this opportunity to go out there, create something, work on something, learn immensely from the work that we do, and also have a real impact and make real money, drive revenue.
Definitely.
In the 4 years I worked there, we grew this website tremendously. So that was a great experience. And then secondly, I became just sort of enamored with college campuses and the market that exists within a college campus and within a college student demographic. I think I kind of got to see a college campus and a college ecosystem as something different from just a student, because I was also kind of on the back end, looking at my fellow students, my fellow peers, as to what are your buying habits? What makes you tick? What gets you excited? What do you like about being on campus? What kind of events do you like going to? What do you hate? When do you make certain decisions versus when do you do other things? So I really just became fascinated with this ecosystem. And, looking back on it now, I could say that those were the early sort of seedlings that led to, both starting a program that revolves around entrepreneurship and also, college students and the energy that comes with being a college student.
Nice. And you definitely have transformed that now into, Startup Island. So could you talk a little bit about the journey to Startup Island?
For sure. Yeah. So graduated college in 2011, kind of ran with the menu platform thing for a couple of years. Actually wound up starting my own in the Twin Cities, wound up not going as planned. So that's, kind of first failure, if you will. I like to look at it now as first big lesson learned. Many lessons there, but I guess two major takeaways for any listeners would be: you need a lot more time than you think you do to build a business, and you need a lot more capital than you think you do to build a business. So learned that in kind of a struggling market, and got to a point where, we said, this thing is not growing the way we want it to, and is it worth the additional time and the additional capital? And due to, I think, lack of passion overall, the answer was no there. So went back to New York, which is where I'm from, and after bouncing around quite a bit, essentially, kind of landed my first real New York City sales job, which was selling digital printing and advertising solutions to, anyone from these large kind of corporate learning and development companies to small-time marketing agencies, and hated the product I was selling, but got some really good sales training. The first time, real official sales training in a New York City environment, very fast-paced, cutthroat. So learned a lot from that. And then after about 1.5 to 2 years, transitioned into a startup role back in the food tech space, actually. So that was great for a while because it had that entrepreneurial spirit that I was looking for. I was brought onto this company as the 30th employee. In 2 years, I got to watch us grow to probably around 150, 200 even. So that was just really exciting, explosive growth to be a part of. And it was back in food tech, which was a space I was familiar with and had really enjoyed being a part of. So that ran its course and was great for a little while. And this takes me to around summer of 2015, where I started to get a little antsy, and there were both kind of personal and professional reasons for that. Professionally, I saw there was a ceiling within the company. You know, I can grow to maybe a mid-level manager here. My salary will be X. I had higher hopes, higher aspirations for myself professionally within the organization. So I felt like the walls were kind of closing in there. But even more alarming was the personal side of that. I wasn't fulfilled, you know, like waking up in the morning and going to work to figure out how to help offices streamline their catering process was like not the thing that gets me out of bed in the morning, you know? And so when I start to have like this kind of, you know, I feel like a lack of fulfillment. I don't know if other entrepreneurs can relate to this or not, but me, I'm very, very bad at compartmentalizing. So if I'm not fulfilled in my work, everything else in my life around that kind of starts to suffer too, because here I am spending 10, 12 hours a day doing something that I'm just like, you know, it's not filling my cup spiritually, emotionally, mentally. And because I'm spending 12 hours a day doing that, like, I don't have other time to spend on taking care of myself, on exploring, you know, who I am, how I want to live, what I want to do, who I want to surround myself with, passions I want to explore outside of work, so on and so forth. I felt like everything just started to take its toll on me. And at that point, I asked myself this question. And this question was, you know, how do I grow personally and professionally at the same time, right? Like if I want to live out a meaningful life, obviously work and career and impact will be a part of that. So how can I feel like I'm growing in my career while I'm also growing in my life? And I knew the life part, you know, that part I had figured out. I knew that travel for me was always something that anytime I took a trip, especially like a trip where I could travel like a local, you know, travel like a native and not a tourist, and really like immerse myself in a culture. And even especially if I got to travel by myself, I would always come back having learned so much, both about myself and about the world and like how I see myself in it and all these intricacies.
Nice.
And so that was huge. I knew I wanted to travel. I knew I wanted to make travel a big part of my life and my career, but I wasn't sure how to do that. And then so I started asking, well, how do I combine travel with, you know, maybe entrepreneurship, maybe creativity, maybe design in the arts, maybe, you know, all of these different things that like I feel like would excite me in some sort of you know, professional capacity. And, you know, I guess somewhere at that point, you know, that kind of struck this light bulb, this aha moment. And it said, well, why don't I combine travel with all the things I just mentioned, with the entrepreneurship, with the resources, with the mentorship, really with a community of people that are similar valued or like-minded, or, you know, can lift you up in that way. So when you take this trip, it's way more than a trip. It's like a huge like injection of inspiration. It's this giant life change. And so that's, you know, that was the raw idea for Startup Island. You came along the way somewhere in there. I remember I attended like one of your Get Shit Done events. I was like, wow, you know, she's got to figure it out. Like she runs a community of these people that I want to be around. So I remember we started talking shortly after that. And then that was like the very raw shell for what Startup Island would become.
Yeah, definitely. And so, you know, you've talked a little bit about kind of how you got Startup Island, but now, you know, what does Startup Island do? Like, let's tell the audience of what this magical island focused, entrepreneurship focused program, like what is it all about? Like, what does it look like on a day-to-day, and what do, you know, clients or participants get out of it?
Thank you for asking that, because when I talk about the early workings of Startup Island, I just ramble when I tell my story. So I'm glad you're roping it back in and giving me the opportunity to tell people what it actually is. So today, as it exists, Startup Island is a program that creates different travel experiences, week-long, weekend, customized retreat and experiential learning opportunities that are specifically geared towards entrepreneurial-minded students and young professionals. So we have 3 core programs that we run. One is an alternative spring break for the entrepreneurial-minded college student. One is a summer camp weekend for young professionals, so 21 and over, really 21 to 35-ish is our typical demographic for summer camp. And then we have a New Year's program that we run called Ignite, and that takes place every New Year, which is just really a way to kind of, you know, reflect a little bit on the years past and jumpstart the new year in a very intentional way. And all of these programs, you know, at their core are about blending your personal and professional passions and surrounding yourself with people that are going to help you take steps forward in your career and in your life based on whatever success looks like for you.
Nice. And see, you know, you have all these nice fancy programs. You got the summer camp, you got the Ignite for the new year, you have the spring break. But did it all start like this? You know, was it day one out the gates? I'm gonna have all these amazing programs. What was that first program and that first trip look? What did that look like, right? What did that feel like? And could you talk a little bit about the ups and the downs? Because oftentimes, you know, we see startups and we see founders with all these great products and services and all this shiny, fancy, nice, you know, social media accounts, but no, they fairly often talk about, you know, that first version, you know, version 0.001 of Facebook, version 0.001 of Instagram. Like, what was version 1 of, you know, Startup Island? What did that look like? What did you learn from it? And kind of just talk a little bit about that first time.
100%. So short answer is hell no. It did not look the same as it does now. Program development has come a long way. When we first started, you know, and this goes back to when you and I were like first talking about how to get this off the ground. You know, all we knew at that point was we want to combine travel with personal and professional development. We want to get good people together. We want to go to some tropical place, and we can imagine that good things are going to happen when they get there, right? And I think you and I, like really, really early, were like, and you know, we can charge a lot of money for this. And one thing, like I remember when we kind of had our, you know, we had like this very premature launch party, and you know, people were interested in this concept, but the questions were like, okay, so like what actually is going to happen here? And we were kind of like, well, you know, like just, you know, we're going to get together, like we're going to come up with ideas, we're going to make business, you know, like good things are going to happen.
Yeah.
And then like you realize like that's not enough to sell people on a premium travel experience, right? Like, sure, maybe that's good at like a free meetup somewhere, you know, but if someone's paying thousands of dollars to go to Costa Rica, let's say, or go to any kind of, you know, premium exotic destination, they want to know exactly what's going to happen and what is my return on this investment going to be, rightfully so. So a little later down the line, probably a few months after that initial, like, you know, potential customer feedback experience, we started thinking about, okay, you know, how can we, and by this point, so I brought in Brian, who's, you know, my co-founder today and has been a friend of mine since we were in middle school. And so we started talking about what are really our strengths? What can we actually bring to this experience to deliver, you know, something that young entrepreneurial minded people will jump at the chance to join. And we both had experience, you know, throughout our lives in different capacities, whether it was like working at summer camps or, you know, being like peer mentors in our schools and upbringings. We were both very good at kind of structuring programs and facilitating different types of discussions that can help people, you know, leave with some sort of takeaway. So we went to the drawing board and thought about what kind of facilitated conversations can we have throughout a week that would look like a week-long retreat on Startup Island. And the more we wrapped our heads around that, back at this point still, we were still kind of thinking like entrepreneurship boot camp in Costa Rica. Like, you're going to Costa Rica mainly because it's awesome, but the programming is still very much like entrepreneurial boot camp focused, like come up with an idea, leave with an MVP type of thing.
Yeah.
And after we started speaking to potential travelers, many of whom were college students, we came up with the idea. This was around October of 2015. So timing wise, and based on what we had learned from some of the younger students we were talking to, we got the feel that, you know, this might be a good option for college students that get a week off for spring break, that they want to do something exciting, they want to do something meaningful, and they don't want to just go like get wasted in Cancun. You know? They want to do something a little bit different, but they still want that fun travel experience. So we decided to develop the program as such, as an alternative spring break. And we mocked up a website. We got a few speakers. At this time, we were actually video chatting speakers in from the States. Not all of them came to Costa Rica to be on site like they are now. We had a few people that had, some kind of clout and decent reputation in the entrepreneurship world, that we thought if, we put their names out there, like that would help us sell tickets. And we just started knocking on doors and essentially like screaming from the rooftops about Startup Island to every single college student, every single student organization, every single entrepreneurship club that we could get contact info for. And there were times where, we probably spoke to at least hundreds, maybe thousands of college students in like that 5-month period. And a few were really, really receptive. A few were interested and curious, but not sold because we didn't exist prior to, them hearing about us. So there was no past programs that they could look to kind of validate our credibility. But luckily, thank God. And it really started with a guy named Ben Bungert, who was the president of the Northeastern Entrepreneurship Club, who him and I had a really good conversation, and he took a chance on us, and he said, basically he was looking for things like this to kind of offer to his student community. And, he thought, what better way to get students out of their comfort zone and take students that, maybe learn differently and give them an opportunity to get to know other students differently, get to know themselves differently, and kind of see how that sparks their creativity. And, pretty much just from Northeastern and then a few kind of warm connections from the Northeastern connection, we have 16 people for our first time.
Nice. And you see, what I want to kind of highlight from the story that Josh just shared with us is, learning kind of when to pivot, from that initial event that we had, kind of taking in feedback. Well, actually, take a step before that, right? Putting it out into the world, not waiting until it's perfect, shiny, and impeccable before you put it out into the world. So putting it out into the world with, that very basic version of what you want it to be, what you think it should be, getting feedback from individuals that would be your, in your target market, and then making adjustments based on that feedback. Like, you might think, the best color for this product or service is blue. And then everyone's like, actually, no, I really like it yellow. I think it would be great yellow. And if this is your target audience and, majority of them are saying yellow, making that pivot to becoming yellow or kind of adjusting so that it makes sense for your audience. And then after that, now kind of continuing to build up on that and getting more feedback and a continuous loop of like releasing something small, getting feedback, talking about it to people. A lot of folks are also scared to share their idea because they think, oh, someone's going to take it, but just really championing your idea and believing in it. It's not really only your idea, it's the people that are behind the idea and executing it that's really the secret sauce. Anybody can have an idea. They said the TV was invented by 2 different people at completely 2 different sides of the country or the world at the same time. And it's just how you execute. That's really the key thing, like who you are and how you execute. And then on top of that, now, once you have this final version or the version you want to make be your launch version, then going to individuals and championing it, say, this is what we're doing, this is how it's going down. Can you be a supporter? Can you share it with your audience? Can you share it with your students? Going to schools, doing presentations, and then, you got that person involved, and now your first trip could have had 5 people, but now it has 16 people, and they're all taking a leap of faith. It's all a new experience, and it's all a starting point. But now, 4 years late, almost 4 years later, there's 3 programs. About how many graduates or participants have you had in the program since then?
So we've had close to 250 participants on core Startup Island programs, and we also do custom retreats for organizations, student clubs, VC firms, solo yoga instructors and boutique studios. So with our custom retreats, we've had over 300.
Nice. So you see, it has to trickle, build up happens a day at a time. And I'm pretty sure if you tried to launch with all 3 of those programs initially, 99% chance they would have all flopped. And as Josh mentioned in the beginning of this interview, you always need more time and more capital than you think. And I think the bigger one of those 2 is time, right? You could get money and you could lose money all the time. You know, investments go sour, investors lose their money. You could go get a job, you could go do freelance. You could always lose and then make money again. But time is something, once it's gone, it's completely gone. So be really mindful of how you're investing your time and making sure that you're not in the lab trying to build this idea for a year and then you haven't even gotten any feedback from anyone. You want to launch it into the world and be surprised that no one is paying attention to it or giving, you know, no one wants to buy it off of day one because they had no idea, you know, what it is. You never took any customer feedback, or you didn't have a wide enough pool of customer feedback. You didn't ask the right people. You didn't interact with the right kind of customer base to get that engagement and that feedback that you need.
100%.
So thank you for sharing that, Josh. And we're coming close to our end, but I definitely want to ask you about, what do you think over the last 4 years has been one of the craziest misadventures on this journey? You know, just one. We're gonna just do one, and for now, because I know there, as every entrepreneur knows, there are usually many stories.
Too many. One day, you know, when hopefully when we make it big enough that, you know, we could really tell the uncensored version of all the misadventures. I'm looking forward to that day. We got a big blooper reel. You know, I guess, and this kind of piggybacks off the last point that you just made too. You know, for one, listen, putting it out in the world is, like you said, I mean, so essential, especially when your product, service, and pretty much, you know, all businesses rely on customers in some way, shape, or form, right? So we thought that we were going to be this sort of, like I said, entrepreneurship boot camp. And then what happened when we got our trip together and the conversation started to develop, and we realized, you know, what our students and our participants are looking for is more than just a, you know, week to build an MVP. Because, like, you know, you're getting that in the classroom, you're getting that on YouTube, you're getting that in these workshops that you go to in your hometown. But what they were looking for was this platform to share authentically with people that they know think the same way, are similarly driven, you know, want to make a big impact on the world, and want to really beat to their own drum and walk their own path all the while doing it. So I guess this leads into our first and biggest misadventure, is when we realized that this was the secret sauce. This was the difference between a Startup Island program and a startup weekend, or, you know, any of these other kind of boot camp type programs. We were so excited and we just wanted to run with it, you know, and we were like, after that first trip, we were just running high on emotion, and we were right in that, like, this is the thing that we want to do for the rest of our lives. You know, this is the thing that we want to bring to the world, and this kind of entrepreneurial energy and drive is the thing that we want to pay forward. But we were like, all right, we had 16 people. We're going to do it again this summer. So in only, you know, 4 months from now, we're going to get 100 people. And, like, that was pretty fucking crazy. You know, like, that was not a good idea. That was not a logical jump. However, misadventures and mistakes teach you so much, because what happened was, when we shot for 100 people and we wound up with 8 of them, literally 8 people, which was half the amount that we got for our first trip. You know, we carried on with a smaller group. We kept it going. We made a trip happen for a smaller group of people. And we realized that, again, you know, another kind of special ingredient to Startup Island is the intimacy. It's the intimacy in that group. And being in a small group helps people really feel like they have that space to open up, really tell personal stories, really, you know, share the things that they're going through, or the challenges that they're having, or why they can't overcome certain things, or, you know, why they're feeling stuck in their life. So now that, you know, it is almost 4 years later, and, like, of course the demand, you know, has increased since those days, and, you know, it's not as much of a challenge. I think all travel businesses, it's still, you know, it's always hard to fill seats, right? But now that we don't have to worry about decreasing number of travelers from trip to trip, the challenge has become, how do you scale the number of participants, maintain that intimacy, and scale the impact of the program? Nice. So what do we do to make sure that people leave with these incredible breakthroughs, But of course, as we're growing the business, how do we go from 8 people to 20 people on one trip? Or how do we, do a summer camp weekend that started as 14 and went to 30 and might go to 60 this summer? How do you do that? So, you learn a ton from the misadventures, and you kind of adapt to the information that you get. But I think mistakes and failures, those are like that's the most raw information you could ever get, right? Like that's the slap in the face, or that's like tripping and falling down and getting cut. Like that is uncensored, unfiltered feedback that you could only get when shit hits the fan. And that's why I would advise anyone to, like you said, judge yourself less and worry about perfection less. Just go out there and everyone says this, right? But like, just go out there and fail. Don't try to fail, and don't look at it as failure. Like, be a little more gentle. So I would say, don't go out there and fail. Go out there and just do it. Do it and know that it's not going to be perfect. And that's going to be the best feedback that you can get, is when you go out there and you make your first mistakes.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. And just like to reiterate that, right? The more you learn and the more you do, the closer you get to succeeding. And I always tell people, the first time I do anything, trust me, like I've gotten to know this about myself. I'm going to mess up. It's going to be messy. It's going to be crazy. But that second or third time, oh, you're not ready for it. Like, and I think, it's a rite of passage. You have to go out there and try. And it's not going to be perfect. You're not going to win your first race that you do. You're not going to win your first spelling competition. Your first painting is not going to be the most beautiful one. You have to just put in the work, and then the results will show themselves, because every time you're failing, you're learning what's wrong and what doesn't work, so that the next time you're focused more on the things that do work, and you continue to do the things that do work and make sense and grow your business. We are at the end now, so Josh, definitely grateful to have you here. I'm super excited to learn more about Startup Island and maybe be one of those mentors on one of those trips. I need to go to Costa Rica.
Let's make it happen, Georgie.
Let's make it happen, and let's get it done. But what is some tangible advice or information you want to give to our listeners who are probably, entrepreneurs right now, or prospective entrepreneurs for the future? Just what kind of information do you think is vital for them to know if they left this podcast episode with just one piece of information? What would that be?
Yeah, it also piggybacks off what you were just saying. I think, being humbled and appreciative of both your successes and your failures. Because let's say you go out, like you said, you don't win your first race, but you work your butt off, and you get faster and faster, and then you win that race. Guess what happens when you win that race? Now you have a new benchmark that you set for yourself, right? Now you want to, you're going to enter a race with faster runners, or you have a new best time that you're pushing for. So either you're going to fall short of your goals, and that's going to push you to get better, or you're going to hit your goal, and then you're going to set a new one and keep going. So somewhere in between, on both sides of that, in the middle, is being humbled by both your successes and your failures. So just appreciate that throughout the entire journey, and remember why you're doing what you're doing. You're not doing it to win. You're not doing it to succeed. You're not doing it to be better next time, although those are all byproducts of the entrepreneurial journey. You're doing it for those like one little moment, those tiny little moments where you can stop and really appreciate the present moment of the journey. That is the beautiful, magical thing. That's what I would say.
Love that, right? It is the journey. It's the misadventures and adventures that make successful founders. And kind of imagine how boring it would be if you just made it on your first try. Then what do you do next, right? Like, you launch that startup, you get $1 million, let's go high. You get $1 billion on that first day. Everyone loves it. What do you do tomorrow, right? So the journey is a part of that, and just recognizing it, and like you said, being gentle with it, right? Respecting it and just honoring it, and say, this is the journey, this is a part of it. I read a book recently, and I'm not remembering the name of it. I read like a few, but it was saying that, I think it was Option B by Sheryl Sandberg. Yeah. Okay. And it was saying that life is lived forward, but understood by like looking back. So pretty much like you don't see the lessons until you've experienced the thing that you learned from. Like you can't like prepare for the lesson. It's like you learn the lesson, and then it's like in hindsight you're like, oh man, that's where those dots connected or where it missed out. But you won't have those experiences unless you're like living it forward and going through it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that's why in this moment, if you can say, one day I'll be able to look back and draw a conclusion from where I am right now. And so for now, let me just appreciate this because I know it's taking me somewhere.
Exactly. Love that. And on that note, guys, we will catch you next time for another episode of Doing the Most, the Misadventures of Entrepreneurship. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Josh.
Thanks, Georgie. My pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Doing the Most. Catch us here next week, same time, same place. If you can't wait, head on over to doingthemost.xyz to stay connected. Until next time, keep on doing.